Hey, everybody, good morning. Okay, I just want to do a sound check. Can you all hear me okay? Hey, um, everything, I don't know, Scott, Lauren, we're okay on sound that we know. And perfect. Well, hey, everybody, great to see you all again. Maybe just a question to kick things off. How did things go yesterday at the sports and games night? Who did some bowling? All right. Did they have the bumper bowling set up for like the little kids where they put like, so it doesn't go in the gutter and you can just bounce it all crazy? No? Okay. What, did anybody have any crazy bowling moves to throw the ball? Anyone? Oh, I got some. What can anyone demonstrate their crazy bowling move that they did? No. Okay. You know, I was gonna make our volunteers dance yesterday, and are there any volunteers in the room? You could raise your hand. Oh, hey there. Can you? No, I won't make you dance just yet. We'll get through the next 2 hours if that's okay, and then we'll see how we're doing. Well, no, great to see everybody. I really hope you all had a nice time yesterday. We had a lot of things to learn. I know we were seated quite a bit, but then we had our scavenger hunt around campus. And I just want to hear quickly, was there anything that was, I don't know, surprising for you that you learned about campus yesterday that you didn't know? Anything interesting that stood out? Maybe raise your hand. Anything that was interesting? Yeah, go ahead. That there are what? That there are good cafes around campus. Yeah, that's right. Any for maybe some of our staff that work here, any places that people specifically like to go to eat? Temple of Zeus, that's one. Yeah, that's over on the art squad. Yeah. Anywhere else that people like or volunteers? Any special places you recommend? Megan? Ooh, give me coffee. Yeah. All right. That sounds good. I really like, there's a new one called Martha's Cafe in the MVR, which is a big building really close to here. They have a lot of, their food is really, it's healthy, but it's also pretty flavorful. Did anyone have a chance to go to Cornell Dairy and get ice cream? Ooh, a couple people. That's one I recommend. All right. Anything else that was interesting from yesterday? Did anybody take any photos doing cartwheels or handstands? Anybody? No cartwheels, no handstands. What about our group that was working on the TikTok? How did that turn out? Has anyone seen it? What? All right, we'll figure out what's going on there. Okay. Anyway, we'll get that figured out. Well, let's see. We got just a couple of things for today. First, we're going to be meeting with some friends from the Dean of Students for a presentation. Then we're going to have some time with our mentors again. And then after that, we have another 2 trips to the mall or to Target if people need to buy more things. At the end of our sessions today, I'm going to be giving instructions for tomorrow, which is going to be our trip to Gannick. All right. Does that all sound good? Anybody have any questions on anything? Yeah, go. Sorry, up in front. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the buses, I forget which number bus that you all are taking, but it's the same one that just keeps running on a regular schedule. So if you want to go with a group of people, it's I think at 12:30 or 1:30, or if you just want to go on your own, that's fine too. Yeah, yeah. What time is it at? 11. Yeah, yeah, that should work out okay. Yeah, great. Yeah, thanks for the heads up. Okay. Well, how about this? We're going to go ahead into our first presentation. I know some people are still coming in. I would like to, and let me see, do we have, Lauren, is there a slide before this one? Right, is this it, person? Great. Well, I would like to introduce two of my colleagues from the Dean of Students. So that Nancy Martinson, who's an interim associate dean of students for diversity and inclusion, and Greta Kenny, who is a senior associate dean of students for care and crisis services. Nancy, Greta, coming up.
Okay. Thanks, Brandon. Hello, everybody. My name is Nancy Martinson. As Brandon said, I'm the interim senior associate dean of students for the diversity and inclusion portfolio. So just something very exciting before we get started is that there are a slew of different resources and spaces designed for students. So we have the LGBT Resource Center, we have the Women's Resource Center, we have the First Gen Low Income Student Support Space, an undocumented student support space, the Asian American Center, and then we also have the Office of Spirituality and Meaning Making for anybody who is religious or is not religious but is spiritual. So all of those different offices fall under the diversity and inclusion portfolio. And then I'm going to kick it over to Greta, who's going to introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. Nice to see you and be here with you. My name is Greta Kenny. I serve as Senior Associate Dean of Students for Care and Crisis Services. And so what that means is if you're having a hard time at Cornell, if your classes are really stressing you out, if you were to get sick or something happened with family back at home and you were struggling, you could come to us and we could help support you and connect you to different resources on campus, including being able to advocate on your behalf with faculty if kind of whatever's going on is having an impact on your academics. We could help you navigate that situation. So that's just a snapshot and we'll dive right in.
All right. So before I super dive right in, I just wanted to get a feel. How many of you have actually studied in the United States before? Okay, so keep your hand up. So for those of you who don't have your hand up, look at the folks with their hands up. This is a good resource for you. So these folks have studied in the US before. They can offer some context to you. All right, put your hand down. Thank you so much for that. How many of you speak more than 2 languages? That is so cool. Okay. Thank you. So there is in the US, only about 20% of Americans can converse in 2 or more languages. And so I think the fact that you are able to speak so many just makes you such a valuable asset to our campus. You just bring such rich culture to us. And so we're so excited to have you here. All right, we are going to, so just so you know, Ithaca, New York is beautiful all year round. I hope you are enjoying the weather. Today's especially a beautiful day. This weekend was really nice. However, the seasons do change. And so I want to prepare you for that. Enjoy the sunshine as it's out right now. It is only a matter of time before you know it, fall comes. Fall is my favorite season. How many of you love cardigans and layering up, right? Love them. So that season is coming up soon. I'm really excited. And then before you know it, snow is going to come. Our first snow typically happens in October. And it can last all the way through really April. So depending, it can be a long time. How many of you have never experienced snow before? Okay, so just so you know, the snow isn't terrible as long as you are equipped with the proper gear, like the proper winter coat, the proper gloves, scarves, hats, all of that stuff. You'll be fine. The snow itself isn't terrible. At Cornell's campus, it's honestly the wind that's going to get to you. So you really need to protect yourself from that.
I swear she is trying to welcome you to Cornell, not scare you off. I promise you.
I'm trying to prepare you. This is prepare. You're welcome. But as you saw, there were other folks who raised their hands who's used to winter. And again, so reach out to your fellow peers as the snow starts to fall and you're like, yo, what coat are you wearing? I'm cold. Feel free, just ask those questions in order to better prepare you. But just know that winter doesn't mean you need to stay in your dorm. It honestly, winter is fun here. You can make snowman. There's winter sports. I am from California, and so I know when I moved here in January, and so I was miserable, y'all. But people were telling me about winter hiking. And I was like, what is winter hiking? Like, but honestly, it is hiking in the winter and it is beautiful. It is so beautiful to see the snow on the trees and on the paths. And so I promise, like, although I am making winter sound a little scary, there are some really positive, beautiful things about it. One of my favorite things is walking through campus and like just feeling like you're inside a snow globe. That'll happen in the winter season when there's like big fat snow, and it's just truly the most beautiful experience. And so I promise there are also positives, but winter is coming. So just make sure you're prepared. All right. So in this workshop, we are going to talk a little bit about some culture shock. Especially for those of you who are studying in the US for the first time. I'm also gonna go a little deeper, gonna be a little more serious, talk about what it means to live in America right now in the context of what's happening in our nation. And then Greta's gonna close it off talking about mental wellness. So those are some of the things that we can look forward to in today's presentation. So culture shock. There are these things called idioms that Americans tend to use a lot. It's like a play on words that you should not take literally, but it is something that you will come across often, and you're going to be like, wait, why did they say that? So we're going to go over a couple idioms just to warm you up, see if you know what they mean. Oh, first one, dig it. It's supposed to have, my bad. So I wasn't supposed to show you the second part. You were supposed to guess, but cut them some slack. Has anyone heard of this expression before? Okay, a little familiarity. So cut them some slack honestly just means don't be so critical. So you might hear that if you're working in a group partner, and you might hear someone be like, whoa, cut them some slack, all right? It's been a busy time. It's snowing outside. We're all cold. You know what I mean? So cut them some slack. It's an expression that we'll use. I'm just pulling your leg. Has anyone heard of this one? Okay, so yeah, again, literally do not pull someone's leg. That is not necessary. We don't want to do that. So I'm just pulling your leg, just means I'm joking with you. Like, chillax, I'm just pulling your leg. I'm just having fun with you. So that's what that expression means. I'm feeling under the weather. Has anyone heard this one? Okay, all right. Look at you all knowing what's up already. Okay, so I'm feeling under the weather. It just means that I'm feeling sick. I'm feeling unwell. All right, next one. To make a long story short, has anyone heard of this expression? Okay, oh, you all are ready to be here. This is great. All right, so to make a long story short is just is someone's way of saying to tell something briefly. However, I must warn you, you will come across folks who still tell the whole story. That does happen. But ideally, when you're saying to make a long story short, you're like, to make a long story short, we're not friends anymore, right? That's a good way to use that term. All right. Now I'm going to move into some customs. I forgot to mention, I am the proud advisor for the International Student Union. If you have not been exposed to them yet, they're a wonderful group on campus. I highly encourage you to check out their events. But one thing that I learned in working with the International Student Union is just some annoyances international students have with Americans and our need for small talk. So Americans, we are just not good with silence. Like, we need to fill that space. And so you might have us talk to you like, oh my gosh, can you believe this weather? And you might think like, yeah, I'm outside. Yeah, I do believe, I feel it too, but we can't help it. We have to like, oh my gosh, did you feel that wind? Yes, I did. Like, what do I say here, right? But we can't help it. We need to fill this void. Even as we're waiting for an elevator, like, man, can you believe how long this elevator is taking? Yes, I can, because I'm waiting for it as well, right? We can't help it. We just need to fill the void. We need to talk. So small talk is something that we do a lot. We talk about weather, we'll talk about sports. But one thing we do not tend to talk about openly is politics, religion, or money. So those are some things that we don't talk about. So in some customs, it may be like, okay to be like, oh, I make this much money a year. That might be okay. In America, we tend not to do that. However, you can look it up for the most part, but we just don't bring that up in conversations. So a little something about small talk. Also, when we talk about the weather, Americans use Fahrenheit. So, and we don't even know Celsius at all. We don't even try. So I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, but welcome. This is something that we do. All right, oversharing. Something else that international students told me that they just cannot comprehend why we do this is we tend to overshare. So In a conversation, we may be like, oh man, like that Taco Bell last night was so good, but dude, I was pooping for like 3 hours last night, man. I'm so tired. Like it was just coming out of me. I couldn't help it, right? And so for you, you might be like, oh my gosh, why would you even say this out loud? I'm sorry, but we do that. We do that. Yeah, not all of us, but but it is something that we do. Or, you know, we might be on the phone and we'll be like, oh my gosh, that was my stepmom. I hate her. My father cheated on my mother with her. She's just the worst person ever. I didn't ask, right? I don't, why are you telling me this? So just a heads up, we have a habit of oversharing. Feel free to join us, or you can just continue on how you like to communicate. But just a heads up, that might be a little shocking for some folks. All right, the next custom is tipping. This is probably the most annoying for anyone visiting the United States, is that we have a terrible habit as a nation to not properly pay our wait staff. And so they really depend on tips. So, and typically 20% is about where we're tipping at. I'd say like 15 to 20 is a pretty typical tip. If you like someone a lot, maybe you'll go 22%. But yeah, tipping is huge. So whenever you go out to eat, tipping is pretty much just, yeah, expected. However, you're eating on campus, tipping isn't as expected. If you want to give them $1 here and there, that's cool, but it's actually not as expected. If you go off campus, then tipping is definitely going to be expected. Something else that can be kind of tricky along that same vein is taxes. So when you do go to Target, you're going to be like, oh, great. This item is $9.99. This $10 bill should suffice. Your $10 bill will not suffice because we have taxes. So your $9.99 thing is going to cost like $10.65, right? And so that can also be something that's really shocking to folks, is like, wait, how did this happen? Why does this not match? And it's because in the United States, we also tax a lot. So heads up when you go to Target, have fun at Target. Okay. All right, the next thing is portion distortion. So in the United States, we love to eat. We love to eat. And when you do go to a restaurant, you might be like, oh, is this just for one person? Yes, it is. Yeah, because we eat that much. So this can be really shocking for some folks to recognize, like, surely this is a meal for two. It's not, it's just a meal for one American. So just something to be prepared for. There is an expression in just the college world in the United States we call the freshman 15. The freshman 15 is this idea that in your first year of college, you'll gain 15 pounds because you're just not used to just the food that we offer, the amount of food that we offer. At your dining halls, you're able to eat whatever you want, whenever you want. So there's going to be some portion control you may want to be aware of. And as you may have noticed, I said pounds. Again, we do pounds here. It's so useless to the rest of the world, but I'm so sorry. Yeah, Americans do pounds. I remember at my last institution, I was working with a Korean student, and she was like, oh my gosh, y'all's chocolate is so good. Like, what do you put in this chocolate? It's so delicious. That she had actually gained 16 kilograms, or 6 kilograms, not 16, I'm so sorry. 6. Yeah, she would know, 6 kilograms, but she did it within like 2 months. And so when she was FaceTiming with her family, they were like, what is wrong with your face? Like, what happened to you? What's going on? And she was like, I can't help it though, the chocolate's so good. So just, yeah, something to be mindful of is we have food and it's not always the healthiest. So ease yourself into our food world. All right, next thing I want to talk about is hookup culture. So again, kind of in the same vein of oversharing, in the United States, we can be very upfront about our intentions when it comes to dating, right? So we don't do none of this nonsense like, hope you're having a good day. No, I want you to come over so we can have sex, right? That is straight up conversations that you may engage in, and not everyone, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to date here. Not everyone is like that, but sometimes people are really upfront about what their intentions are in regard to approaching you and flirting with you. And so again, for international students, this can be incredibly shocking, or it can be exhilarating. I don't know your life, but just something to be aware of, right? There is a difference in culture. All right, so next I'm going to move into American context. So this is the more kind of serious stuff. But as an international student, these are just things that I worry might be on your mind. And so I want to make sure that we talk about it and that we approach it up front. So currently right now in the US, there is just a lot of polarization in regard to our politics. There are two very popular political groups, Democrats and Republicans, and we are just currently just not getting along in every aspect of that word. And so as a result, that's also another reason why you don't talk about politics as part of small talk, is because you just don't know where people stand. So currently right now, one of the most prevalent things on people's minds is abortion. So abortion in our nation just became, the Supreme Court decided not to protect it. So therefore, different states can choose whether or not they want to have abortions in their state. And so this is really causing a lot of turmoil across states. Just know in New York State, you are able to utilize birth control, that is true, and abortion as well. That is something that our state protects. Something else I want to bring up is just race. In the United States in general, race is something that we are just obsessed with. Like, we love putting people in a box, and race is a social construct, right? But as a society, it's really important for us to know what race people are. And this actually may impact your identity formation here at Cornell. I know I was working with some South Asian students who are from India, and they were saying how like people told them like, oh, you're the brown Asians. And they're like, what? What is that? Right? Or you're brown. Why am I brown? I don't know. What do you mean? So just know, yeah, we are really into race. And so you might come across people who are straight up, hey, what are you? Like, they just want to know, like, what race box do I put you in? And it's a very truly American thing. And it can be very confusing if you're from a country that isn't very diverse and you're used to just one race. And so you don't talk about race that much. Here in the US, we tend to talk about race a lot. So something to warm you up as we move forward. So inclusivity, something that I really appreciate about the United States that not all countries do is that we recognize that sometimes male and female doesn't describe a person. And so we have something called gender inclusivity here, where we recognize that there's another option, or there's other options than just the male and female option that we're used to. And so in order to help folks who are non-binary or gender non-conforming feel more welcomed on campus, something that's very common is we use pronouns when we introduce ourselves. You may have already seen this happen. And so it can seem a little odd if you've never seen it before, but typically when classes start and they do a around the room, let's introduce ourselves, it's very common for folks to just naturally, hi, I'm Nancy Martinson, she, her pronouns, and I'm from California, right? And you can be like, wait, why'd they do that? And it's a way of us being inclusive by letting people know what pronouns we use, and then also for us to pay attention and listen to what pronouns other people use so that we know to use those pronouns when we address them in a conversation. And again, in some countries, there isn't a language for another pronoun. So for example, I'm Filipina. Shout out to any Filipinos who are out there. What up? I see you. So in the Filipino language, we'll use Filipina, Filipino, we'll use Filipinx. That's something that we'll use. So sometimes you'll see an X instead of an A or an O to just be a little more inclusive. In the Latinx culture, there can be an X or Latine with an E. Or they can use the @ sign. So there's also like different cultures who are really trying to come up with ways to be more inclusive. But on a college campus, this is something that you will see quite often. And again, if you've never seen it before, it can be a little confusing, but it's really meant to just make everyone feel included on campus and seen. All right, the next thing I want to talk about is Black Lives Matters. So in the summer of 2020, a horrific video of police brutality captured the murder of a man named George Floyd. And as a result of that, there were Black Lives Matter marches across the globe. And maybe even in your country, you saw that there were Black Lives Matter marches that were occurring. So I just want to bring up that Black Lives Matter is something that is still being talked about in the United States. And there's also been conversations. So again, the politicalization, yes, of Black Lives Matters versus All Lives Matters. So sometimes you'll have people be like, wait, all lives matters. But Black Lives Matters isn't saying that other lives don't matter. It's just recognizing that we really need to prioritize this community first in order to ensure that all lives can matter. So even using those two terms can be very political in this nation. So something I want to bring up. Also, as I mentioned, we're a country that's really into race. So even if you are Afro-Latino, or if you are Caribbean, if you have dark skin, you are going to be racialized as Black. And so that is something to be mindful of as you're entering these communities and just different spaces on campus. There have been Black Lives Matter organizing on campus, and President Pollock has made a statement to support Black students on campus. There are also clubs and organizations that focus on activism and supporting the Black community. One of the more active ones is Cornell for Black Lives. And there's also like the Black Student Union, but then there's also different ethnic Black student organizations. So there are over 1,000 different student organizations to participate in at Cornell. I strongly encourage you to just, check them out, see what's available, and find something that's going to bring you community. The next thing I want to talk about is anti-Asian racism. So I got just some concerns from students and their parents coming from Asian countries who are worried about this. And the truth of the matter is when COVID-19 hit, the Asian community was blamed for it. We were the scapegoat for it. And as a result, there was an increase of anti-Asian violence against our community. And so I do want to acknowledge that did happen here in the United States. There are some spaces in which that is still occurring. However, at Cornell, there has not been an increase in bias reports toward Asians. And I just want to reassure you that at Cornell, the Asian community can feel safe here. There was also something that occurred in March of 2021. There was in Atlanta, Georgia, there was a spa shooting that specifically targeted Asian women, in which 6 Asian women were murdered. And it was this idea that this man had a sex addiction and he blamed Asian women for it. So then this idea of Asian fetishization was something that became like rampant in our minds, like, dang, does this guy actually want to date me, or does he only want to date me because I'm Asian? And so this was like legit, just something that our students were thinking about. This is something that's prevalent in their minds and still is today. There's also something called the model minority myth. The model minority myth is this concept that's very, I'm sure it exists in other countries, but in the United States, it's this really prevalent idea that simply by being born Asian, you are just naturally smart, that you didn't actually have to work hard for it. You're just naturally smart. And so how that can show up is that when you have a calculus final, no one's going to ask you how you did because you're Asian. Clearly you got the A, right? I don't even need to ask you. However, when that's not true, that feels some kind of way, right? And so although this model sounds great in theory, it actually can be really harmful if you don't fit the stereotype of what that model says. And so as I mentioned earlier, the Diversity Inclusion Portfolio has a list of resources. The Asian and Asian American Center is a space for both domestic and international students, and it's absolutely a space that you can go to if ever you need community or just want to speak to somebody. All right, and so now I'm going to kick it off to Greta.
Is there any questions for Nancy? Any questions for Nancy? Before I jump in. Well done, Nancy. Thanks. All right, so I want to talk about kind of overall mental health, mental wellness, self-care, things like that. And so I want to actually start by asking you, when I say those words, what comes to mind? What is something that you do that kind of engages in self-care? Say again? Sleep. Yes. Listening to music. Yes. Walking. Yes. Meditation. Awesome. Y'all don't need me. You're meditating. You're good. All right. Awesome. That's amazing. So when we think about stress, we often think in the negative, right? Oh, I'm super stressed out. I have a prelim tomorrow. I'm not gonna sleep tonight. I'm gonna study all night, right? There's actually a continuum, as you can see, of stress. And so we have kind of good stress, we have bad stress, if you will, and then we have this like sweet spot in the middle, which is where we're actually striving to be, because it gives us the motivation, but it hasn't crept over into that part where it's debilitating yet. Get my notes. So there's this thing called an allostatic load, and that refers to the cumulative effect of stressors in your life, in your academics. And that's what's going to get you over into this part of anxiety, panic, anger, breakdown, is that cumulative effect. And so the things that you just said, sleeping, meditating, walking, listening to music, those are all things that are going to help you kind of bring that allostatic load down so it stays in this good stress peak spot. Does this make sense? Okay, cool. So this is another way of looking at essentially what we just looked at. So there's the thriving, I've got this, right? Like I'm here, I'm good, I've gone through prepare, I'm actually feeling prepared, like this is good. And then we get into surviving, like I'm doing all right, I'm making it work, but something doesn't feel right. Struggling is this notion of I can't keep this up, right? I'm struggling, this is not sustainable. And then in crisis, I can't survive this, like everything is really bad off, right? And so part of what I want you to take away from our time together is just to not wait until you're over here in crisis, right? And so we talked about some of the things that we do to keep our stress at a good level. What are signs that you're crossing over to where it's not good? Is something, yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Yeah, that's great. So changing habits one way or the other, and particularly about eating. So eating nothing or not a lot, or eating too much. Yep. Go ahead. Yep, go ahead. Yeah, not enjoying things that you used to. That's a really good one. What else? Yeah. Depression. Say more about that. What do you mean by depression? How do you know that you might be depressed? Say again. Being lonely all the time. Yep. Yeah. There was another hand over here. Yeah. Having problems sleeping. Yes. So maybe sleeping way too much or not being able to sleep and kind of your mind racing, keeping you all up. So these are the things I want you to notice. When they start to happen for you, you might be in this like surviving, struggling space. That's when we want to reach out and get connected and be in touch with resources. Obviously, you can and obviously should reach out and ask for help if you're in this kind of in crisis mode, but it doesn't have to, you don't have to wait for it to get that far, is what I'm saying. So connectedness. So how do you all find community? Yeah. Say again? Very essential. Yes, it is very essential. What are ways that you find community? Either, yeah, go ahead. Common interests. Yep. Yeah. Reaching out and maintaining friendships. Yep. Common background, shared identity. Absolutely. Go ahead. By chance. Yeah, sometimes it's by chance. I mean, in some ways it makes sense because you're all international students, but it's by chance that you're all here together and prepare, right? And so the hope is that you're building community right now, right? So social support, as the slide says, and feeling connectedness and building community mitigates mental health stress, and it's a protective factor. So if you are struggling or you're in that kind of I'm struggling or in crisis mode, being connected and having community is going to help you manage those stressors. And so, like it says here, a growing body of research also links a student's sense of belonging to well-being and persistence at colleges and universities. And regular and healthy interpersonal contact with friends, family, classmates, faculty, and staff provide an important sense of social connectedness for students. And so this is just to show again that, like, if we have community, we're going to be more in the thriving and surviving space than in the struggling and in crisis space. So I want to ask a kind of like direct question. Where you're from back at home, is kind of seeking support and resources kind of encouraged? Is it looked down upon? Is it there's no real strong cultural force either way? Is anyone willing to share? Yeah.
We kind of say that we want to hear about it, but in reality, like, there's a strong culture of not talking about it and like not wanting to show it. Even though like, everyone's like, oh, it's on the support system, but like nobody, it's really hard to reach out to them. Like, people don't want to like show it.
Yeah, so for those of you who couldn't hear, it was shared that they're from New Zealand, and without, you know, there's this kind of talk about we care and we know that mental health is a struggle, but then it's also kind of frowned upon to actually speak out about it or access resources. Is there a hand over here? Yeah, go ahead.
Because people view it as like, you know, like going to a therapist or a psychologist, they're like, oh, I'm not going to do that, I'm not mad, and that kind of thing. Like, it's like a kind of mentality where once you try to seek help, they think that, you know, they're living themselves as sitting on that, and people view it as like something that's not fun, especially for guys.
Yeah.
They don't like, you know, they don't really talk about their feelings and stuff like that because it's viewed as like soft and, you know, there's not really a culture that is.
Yeah, thank you so much. The student was talking about being from Jamaica and how a lot of stuff is frowned upon in terms of accessing a counselor or therapist, because then you'd be considered mad or crazy. And then I appreciate your highlighting the gendered context too of it, in terms of, is it different for men or women? And so if a man seeks support resources, is he considered quote unquote soft? That's great, thank you. Anybody else? Yeah, over here. Yep. Yeah, especially guys being considered weak or useless is what I heard. Yeah. Go ahead. Ah. That's really interesting. Thank you. Yeah. So for those who couldn't hear, the students from Singapore and talked about how there might be differences across social class and socioeconomic status. Yeah, in the back. Did you have your hand up?
Yeah, it's kind of like what you said, it's kind of similar in London where more well compared to the person on the street, you know, you go to the school and taking care of, it's important to have a illness, that was part of the food, or the struggles or you stress they have in their life.
Yeah.
But it's universal.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Thank you. I don't know if folks could hear, but the student was saying that this stuff is universal, right? It does, we see the kind of societal norming across social class or gender dynamics, but also the acknowledgement that wellness applies to all of us, and all of us have life stressors. And so we both experience the kind of dark moments or the depression or the loneliness, right? But being able to access something is something that I hope all of you feel comfortable doing in this environment. So wanted to just segue to a little bit of information about Cornell and resources. So in the US, emotional well-being is considered an important part of overall healthcare. And so you'll often hear people say like, if I was, someone's talking about depression and not wanting to see a therapist or not wanting to consider going on medication. And sometimes people will counter and say, if you had cancer, you would not get cancer treatment, right? And so it's similar in that sense of like, it's just another part of our overall health and well-being. About 20% of students at Cornell seek services each year through Cornell Health and CAPS, which is, have you heard CAPS yet? Yeah, counseling and psychological services. There's also 24/7 access for consultation and support. And so if you ever were in a really bad spot, even if it's 3 o'clock in the morning, there are actually resources available. You don't have to suffer through that alone. We talked about this already a little bit. Is anyone talk to me about like plans or goals to build community? Does anybody have plans to join any student organizations? What are you thinking about? We have the ISU advisor right here. Go ahead. Awesome. Anything else? Yeah. Yeah. That's great. Yeah, for those of you who couldn't hear it, the student was talking about how there's so many offerings that it's a little bit overwhelming. Like, how do you pick? And wanting to be able to pick quality over quantity. And so for that, and Nancy jump in obviously, but my advice there would be to take your time, right? There's no rush. You don't have to join things. I know I just asked the question, what are you joining? Sorry, but you don't have to join tomorrow or next week, right? Like you can take your time and get settled and get adjusted and meet folks in your residence hall and build your community over the semester.
And then I do just want to mention, Cornell is a very competitive place. And so when it does come time to join organizations, there are some, especially like the professional business organizations that are incredibly competitive. And so I know as a first year student, they are just shocked and their feelings are so hurt when they get rejected or denied into membership of these organizations. I just want to normalize that will happen. You are going to reach out for something a little more competitive and you won't get it and your feelings will be hurt. You will be sad, but someone who tried to get it too and they didn't get it, bam, immediate friend. Like, yeah, forget that org. We don't need them. Like that's an immediate way to make friendships. Also, as the ISU advisor, I know for a fact that there are many ISU students who literally had their Cornell like lifelong friends that they met at Prepare. So please do not underestimate the value of this space and just how great it is to know that everybody in here is going through the same experience. And so you have someone who totally understands what it is that you're going through. So I really, really encourage, like, I feel like where you're sitting right now, those are the homies that you've made, but you still have a couple, more time to prepare, like switch it up, really, really take the time to get to know more people because this is a solid community. You have connectedness in this room.
I feel like she just finished it. One last thing. There's actually, I'm going to move this for a second. There's this website called caringcommunity.cornell.edu. Can I click on this? Do we think? Is that all right? I'm going to click on it and see what happens. So this is mental health and well-being resources at Cornell. And as you can see, the website's intended to support mental health and well-being of Cornell University students, staff, and faculty. And there's all sorts of resources on this whole page. And so if you're ever like, hey, I just want to explore like this, explore self-care, I want to build community, you can come here and see what offerings are available. Or if you're kind of in that space where you're like, I'm not doing well, this is bad, I need some kind of after hours help, that this is another space that you can come to and find support. There are a couple of things now. The challenge is to get back to the slide deck. Interesting.
Does it want to be? Nope.
That's okay. That
She
was like
forgot.
pretty much the last slide anyway. There's one more. But a couple of, if you have your phone, I want you to take it out for a second and give you 2 phone numbers. And so the first one is CAPS, the after hours. You think I know it? I think I should know it. Let me give you the other one first. So we have what's called emergency crisis manager. So if you're ever in crisis at any time, you can call Cornell Dispatch at 607-255-1111 and ask to be connected to a crisis manager. And so that's like the first, like, if nothing else, you know, you don't feel like you can reach out to your friends, you don't feel like there's anybody here for you to talk to, there's always an after hours crisis manager. So you call this number and you just say, hey, can you connect me to the crisis manager? And then the other one is the counseling and psychological services. If you wanted to talk to a therapist, and I know we talked about how there's some stigma, but there's nothing wrong with reaching out and asking to talk to a therapist. It's not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength, because you know you're at your you're at a breaking point and you need to reach out and get connected. And so that one is, did you find it? No. All right. 607-255. I think it's 1115. Yeah, I will double check that. And that they have
1115. Oh, 5155.
5155. Sorry about that. Can you tell I'm going off script? So 5155, and they have after hours therapists that you could talk to if you ever needed to. And then I'm gonna see, we did have one more slide. Oh, there it is. Oh, there it is. All right. Any questions before Nancy wraps us up? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. So if you have Cornell insurances, do people have their insurance through Cornell? Seeing some nods, yeah, then everything should be covered. So you should, so like, you're not gonna get a big bill because you went in and talked to a therapist. So that all would be covered, yep. Was there a question in the back or was that? No, okay. Any other questions? Okay.
Right. So this is just a really cool photo that we wanted to share with you. So since its founding in 1865, international students have always been a part of Cornell. And so this is actually a picture of the Cornell Cosmopolitan Club in 1904. And it's a group of international students who are coming together. And it was this idea that they would all come together and just be ambassadors of like everything that they've learned, that they would share it back in their home countries, but also just to acknowledge like that Cornell truly is a global institution. And so I just want to remind you, yeah, international students have always been a part of our community. We are so excited to have you here. And so congratulations on your admittance into this institution. And I hope you have the most phenomenal time at Cornell. Thank you all so much for your time.
And this last slide just has our email addresses. So if you wanted to get in touch with either of us, feel free to snap a picture or whatever.
Well, thanks so much, Nancy, Greta, that was great. Thank you for those resources. Yeah, just the important issues that you all are going to engage with, being students here. So the next piece that we're going to move to is more time with our mentors. But before we go to that, I just want to talk through a few things for the next steps for today, but especially for tomorrow. So give me 1 second. Yeah. Okay, so like I said, we're going to have some mentor breakouts right now. We might need to join some of the groups together, just depending on who's here. So we'll talk about that in a moment. We'll have again those target trips at 12:30 and 1:30, leaving from RPCC. But then really the rest of the day is yours. I know there's some different activities, I believe, happening around campus. The idea is, though, that everyone will be joining regular orientation starting that begins tomorrow evening. So Wednesday evening is when the full orientation starts. And if anyone has questions about that and where to find that information, I guess raise your hand. Does anyone have any questions about orientation and where to find that information? It should be on, yeah. And you said that's for your oh, the mentor sessions, yeah. Yeah, we'll be talking through the mentor sessions in just a couple minutes to see where we're going to have people meet up. Yeah, thank you. But you should be able to see, everything for orientation through new student programs. You can find out all that information there. So for Taganic for tomorrow, Lauren, remind me, we're going to have people meet at RPCC where we had the prepare check-in for those of you that did it there. That's going to be at 11:15. Is that right? So, okay. So we're going to have everybody meet at 11:15 at RPCC because the bus is going to leave at 11:30. We're going to have a couple of big buses, so you're going to see them. So it will be easy to know where you should be. Those are going to leave at 11:30. We're going to drive everyone. It's about, 20 minutes, half an hour away. Again, it's a park, there's a couple of things to do there. We'll have food for everybody, so we'll spend some time, you can eat. And then usually some people like to go walk over to the waterfall. So I believe it's like it's the tallest waterfall east of the Mississippi, I believe. It's not Niagara Falls, so I want to manage expectations. It's beautiful, but if you're expecting like just a wall of water, coming at you, it won't be that, but it's still pretty. And it's a nice walk, it's kind of a neat canyon and it's, tree covered. So it's really pretty and it's just a fun thing to do. Another thing that people like to do, there's water. So you're on Cayuga Lake. So there's kind of a beach area. It's not like Copacabana in Brazil or something either. So don't expect like, white sand beaches, off into the distance, right? But again, it's nice. You can hang out with people. It's just a great time to talk. I believe we're going to bring over some games and some of the stuff from last night, for like sports or whatever. So, it's just a couple of hours to spend together, because the reality is this is the last time. That's the last thing for prepare, because then after that you get back on the bus and then prepare's over, and then you are released into the wild of the rest of Cornell, and you start your regular orientation. But hopefully you've had a chance to connect with people, get phone numbers, get emails. And so this Taganic trip is just a really nice time, I think, to solidify that. It gets you outside of Cornell, gets you outside of Ithaca. Someone's raising their hand back there, kind of. Yeah, what's up? Can you swim? Yeah, I think you can swim right now. Yeah. Like, yes, yeah. So, if you can swim, you can go in the water, and people do, that's for sure. And the only reason sometimes, just like any place where you swim, sometimes there's like, advisories that you can't swim because of whatever reason, whatever the water. But I believe since the last time I checked, the water is great. I don't know what the temperature is, but yeah, if you want to bring bathing stuff, go for it. Some people will just like, go into the water like up to their knees. Totally up to you. I know they also rent like paddle boards and kayaks and that kind of thing. Probably not enough time tomorrow to do that. So hopefully you can go back another time to one of the other beaches or other areas. But anyway, that's our time at Taganic. Lauren, can you remind me, we plan for the buses to leave there at, so the buses will then leave at 3:30, okay? To come back to Cornell, drop everyone off at RPCC, and then that's it. So don't forget tomorrow, 11:15 at RPCC, lunch will be covered, have some final time together, get back here around 4 p.m. There's a slight chance of rain tomorrow. And so if in the morning it looks like it's, very much going to rain, we'll email everybody, and we'll probably send some text messages or whatever to mentors as well, just to let people know, hey, change of plans. We might have to cancel the, picnic thing. And if so, we would have food that people can, grab boxes of lunch and eat, at RPCC or somewhere around there. We've never had to cancel this, at least in the last 4 or 5 years. So plan on going, plan on it happening. If it rains a little bit, then I think we'll still be okay. We have a bunch of covered places to be able to eat and like play board games and stuff, while the rain leaves, and then you can go out and walk around. So any questions on Taganic tomorrow? Yeah, please. So the bus ride, I want to say it's like 20 minutes. Yeah, 20 minutes, something like that. So not too long. Yeah. And if you have sunscreen, if you're sensitive to the sun, bring sunscreen. There's also a lot of places that are shaded, so you don't have to be sitting in the sun the whole time, I think. Okay. Yeah, please. Oops. Yeah, so will there be a lot of walking? If you don't want to, you don't have to walk at all. Yeah, if you want to walk, I think the walk to the waterfall is probably like, it's 1 mile, so it's a mile. So like, I should know my kilometers, but I've blanked at this moment. But yes, it's maybe, a 15-minute, 20-minute walk, something like that. So, and of course there are other paths that you can do as well that are a bit more adventurous. But yeah, you can do it however you want to. You just want to sit around, hang out, talk with people. You want to swim, you want to walk, play some sports, that's all good. Any other questions? Okay, cool. So before we go ahead and have people break out into mentor groups, one thing I just want to say is thank you. You all have been a great group. I've appreciated all the questions. It's been so much fun to see you all just engaging with each other, taking advantage of the opportunity, beating each other at poker. I mean, all that stuff has been just a fun time. I do really hope, and my office hopes, that this has been a worthwhile experience for you. Hopefully you've learned some things. You've had a chance to kind of get used to life at Cornell, the campus, before things really start to heat up. You might have seen that people are starting to move in today, and so that's going to continue for the next couple of days. So it might have felt very kind of calm and quiet, and that's going to disappear very fast, which is why we go seek refuge at Taganic for one more afternoon before it really gets crazy. But I think you're going to have a great time. Do stay in touch with each other as much as possible. Use all these resources that you've learned about my office, the Office of Global Learning. We're very much here for you. As international students, you all are automatically signed up for our monthly newsletter, where we send information on immigration stuff that's pertinent to you, and also just things that are going on and that are coming up. We also have a Facebook page that you can sign up on for events and updates, International Student Union. So really do take advantage of all those resources and do reach out to us if you need anything, if you have any questions. We are going to send, probably within the next couple of weeks, a survey, just kind of asking about how Prepare went and, things that you'd like to see added for the next generation of people. And finally, in terms of the next generation, be on the lookout because we would love for all of you to be volunteers next year, the volunteer mentors. So we'll be sending out a call looking for help for next August. When you know this place and how it works, then you can spread the love that way. So thank you all so much. It's been great. And one round of applause for all of you, for Lauren, for Scott. Thank you.